Greetings, TMA Automation Showcase attendees. My name is Alex Shikany, and I'm with the Association for Advancing Automation. First, let me say thank you to Sarah Ann and the TMA team for having originally Jeff Bernstein speak at the event, and now myself virtually. We wish we could be there in person with you, but unfortunately, unforeseen circumstances prevented Jeff's travel. So I'm here today to talk about the robotics industry, the automation industry, what's exciting, what's happening, it's a pleasure to be with you. So thank you for having us. I'd like to begin the presentation today by just going over quickly who we are at the Association for Advancing Automation. So the Association for Advancing Automation was started in 1974, originally as the Robotic Industries Association, or RIA. But over the years, we've expanded to address multiple different technology communities, such as vision and imaging, motion control and motors, and our most recent technology strategy group, which is artificial intelligence. And altogether, we have over 1,300 member companies from around the world, many of which are headquartered right here in the United States and North America, but we also have members in Europe, Asia, and all across the world. So I mentioned we have 1,300 member companies. We are heavily a manufacturer and supplier-based organization, with just about 60% of our membership being manufacturers of automation technologies like robotics, vision, cameras, optics, artificial intelligence, software, and so on and so forth. But we do have a really good representation of system integrators, machine builders, consultants, distributors, and a growing segment of end user companies who are deploying these technologies. And I'm sure many of you attending the TMA Automation Showcase might be in that category as well. So that's who we are. We're passionate about automation. We're passionate about advocating for companies to deploy automation because we believe in the value proposition, we believe in the benefits of it, and we think it's going to improve humanity, careers, and pretty much our everyday lives. And so with the remainder of this presentation, I'd like to focus on three main areas. I hope at the end of this recording, you'll have walked away understanding the current landscape of where we are with industrial automation and robotics technology. The current landscape, the current trends, what's going on, and maybe have some ideas or thoughts on how you can plug in to this industry in the future or deploy automation. Number two, I'd like you to understand the magnitude of our markets. So we track statistics, so I'm going to show you some statistics on how the robotics market is doing right now and what we see happening in 2025. And in closing, I would like to get across the promise of automation technologies, where we see this industry in a year, 3 years, 5 years, and the benefits that for you as machine builders, members of TMA, users, but also for the industry and public at large. And so to begin this, I'd like to pose a question. What does our future look like? 10 years ago, if I was doing this presentation, I would be probably showing you a video of collaborative robots, like a universal robot arm or a rethink robot, because they were just coming on the scene. It was a new development that meant that human beings could work alongside robots and automation safely without rigid safety fencing. And this felt like the future at the time. 5-6 years ago, I probably would have been showing you an autonomous mobile robot moving around a warehouse, maybe a Kiva robot or something in an Amazon facility, moving big racks, or a collaborative robot arm on top of a mobile base, which was a big development in the industry. But now I'm showing you a video from Figure AI, which is a company doing humanoid robotics. And in this presentation, I'm going to talk about some of the promise we see around humanoid robotics, what it means overall for the automation industry, because there's a lot of hype right now. The future is uncertain, but this is a very important development, just like those other two, and we think it holds a lot of promise for our industry moving forward. And while many of you in the audience might be thinking, it's not likely I'm going to deploy a humanoid robot anytime soon. That's fair. You may yourself be thinking you're very skeptical of the technology. I am too, in some respects. But the money is certainly there. Now, Figure AI, just last week, there was a Reuters article that came out that said they're in talks with investors to raise some $1.5 billion in additional funding, which would put their market valuation just south of $40 billion. Now, those are massive numbers, of course, huge. And whether or not any of this comes to fruition remains to be seen. But another data point we have is just last week, it was announced $350 million was awarded to Aptronic and Jeff Cardenas for their humanoid robot and their Series A. And there are stories like this up and down the landscape of humanoid robots. And so what does that tell us? Well, it tells us that the current landscape for high technology, new technology, innovations in our space is ripe for funding, for adoption, and is frankly aligned to provide a good opportunity for you as small and medium-sized users or machine builders or companies. You're going to find it easier and more affordable to automate here very shortly because there's a lot of support now behind technology investment in our space. Humanoids being a proxy for this. Another data point I'd like to share with you was in late January when the Trump administration was just getting started. The Stargate project was announced. The initial investment that was announced is $100 billion coming into the United States to essentially deregulate our environment to the extent we can safely do so and make it more advantageous for us as the United States of America to become the leader in artificial intelligence and high technology, smart automation type technologies. This is promising because there's a forward-looking note in this project that says that it could rise to somewhere near $500 billion by 2029 or north of that. And you have, as you can see here, a number of the leading companies in the chip manufacturing space, the software space, and the AI space on board for this. It was also claimed that this could lead the way to 100,000 or more American jobs, which is, of course, a big theme that we talk about with automation creating new and rewarding careers that people actually want to aspire to and stay in for a long period of time because they're working with 21st century tools. And so this is all to say, with the amount of investment we're seeing coming into humanoid robots as a proxy for industrial automation, with the deregulation and government support that is being signaled by things like the Stargate project, we believe, and the industry at large believes, right now there's a feeling of optimism that the market, it's a great time to automate now. And I'm going to talk you through some of the history, where we've been, how we arrived at this point, and then also where we are as a market right now. But as I mentioned, we have to know where we were to understand where we are today. And so for the next couple slides, I just want to go through how the United States has evolved in the grand scheme of robotics and automation. And it really all began in 1961 with the Unimate robot that was produced by Joseph F. Engelberger and George Duvall. And it was a novel technology release at the time. You can see the picture there, which was on late night television, big release and a lot of excitement around it. Its initial commercial success was in the automotive space, but it later, it expanded to other manufacturing areas and was developed further. And there were some constraints, of course, with the kind of first major release. There were high costs to adopt it, of course. There was limited compute relative to where we ended up, decades later. And it relied on hydraulic systems rather than the electrical systems that we have prevalent today. But as we moved on from that point, a lot changed in the decades that came afterwards. R&D funds in Japan and in Europe really started investing heavily in robotics and developing the technology and really wrest the control of the robotics space away from the United States in that period of time. You can see that during that period of time, the U.S. manufacturing market actually declined. And that's what this graph is showing you there. You can see that really starting in the early to mid 90s and 2000s, manufacturing employment started to decrease, and it didn't really rebound to the level that it was before. And of course, we outsourced a lot overseas for manufacturing purposes during that period of time. And so Japan, a lot of the major industrial robot players you may recognize today are Japanese companies in terms of headquartered, or European countries. But that's not to say we didn't come back to some level of prominence in this grand scheme of automation technology. So in today's world, the 2000s kind of up through the present, what you're seeing is a very vibrant startup community in the United States. You have companies like Agility Robotics, with the picture here on the right side, humanoids. You have a lot of startups in AI. We have some of the leading AI companies, in fact, some of the biggest names that I've mentioned previously and that you all might be familiar with. And a lot of the technologies during this period of time evolved. I have some of them listed there: electric and servo-based robotics, the integration of machine vision to collect good data and process images for complex applications. And then, of course, I mentioned previously different form factors: collaborative robots, autonomous mobile robots, and humanoids. Silicon Valley's influence has been prominent, but we also have pockets of other startup communities, like in Boston, for example, in Pittsburgh, even Detroit to some extent, and now in areas like Austin or Seattle even, there's a vibrant tech community as well. There are concerns, however, of course, with the recent COVID-19 that our supply chains are vulnerable, with still a lot of the manufacturing and production taking place overseas. We saw a lot of lead times and delays and issues, procuring chips and things like that. And so you're really seeing the investment in our current state center around addressing those challenges. And the CHIPS Act is chief among them. Of course, this was announced several years ago, but it's a $52.7 billion investment to produce new fabs in various states in the union, like Ohio and Phoenix area, and really try to bring some of those chip developments stateside so that we have the ability to produce and source chips from within the United States itself. We also saw a lot of support for economic development programs like the Build Back Better program during the Biden administration. There's the MEP, the Manufacturing Extension Partnership out there, and the Good Jobs Challenge as well. And infrastructure law, regulation, the Inflation Reduction Act, these are all kind of ongoing policies and legislation that are likely to change and evolve over time, certainly with the new administration coming in. There's a lot of questions about, will the Stargate project actually reduce regulation and pave the way for a smooth transition into automation? How will tariffs affect the manufacturing and automation community? That's on the minds of a lot of our member companies, because they source or sell from other Japan or Europe or even China in some cases. And so there's a lot of open questions. But it does remain that America is seen as one of, if not the greatest opportunities for robotics and automation investment in the near future. Depending on which survey you look at, our own surveys tell us that North America is seen as the best region of opportunity for increased sales of automation technology within the next year and certainly, the next 5 years. But one of the reasons for this is because we're lagging so many other countries in terms of robot adoption. Now, this graph you're seeing is from the International Federation of Robotics. It's showing you robot density in the manufacturing space. And you can see that the Republic of Korea has 1,012 industrial robots per 10,000 manufacturing employees. The United States is 10th on this list, at 295 robots per 10,000 manufacturing employees. Now, you'll notice China, one of our chief competitors on the global stage for automation and technology advancement, they're third. They have 470 robots per 10,000, and we know China has a very large population. And so they're much more highly automated than we are, even at this current moment. And that's one of the reasons why many are viewing America as the key region of opportunity for now and for the next several years, is because there are so many companies, probably many of you sitting in the audience, that have opportunity to deploy robots and automation. And will now be the right time for you? I hope at the end of this presentation, you'll at least be considering that the answer should be yes. But it's been a tough couple of years. Make no mistake about it, the last 2 years in the robotics industry, our companies have felt basically plateauing performance. It has not felt like that COVID-19 surge of automation investment, which you can see here in this graph. During the 21-22 COVID-19 pandemic, we had record years in both 21 and then 22 for robot sales in North America. But 23 and 24 followed that with very flat performance, in fact, dropping to a level that was very similar to the pre-COVID-19 levels, as you can see. So we were basically flat last year in terms of North American sales of robotics. On the right-hand side of your screen, what you can see is quarterly performance broken out. The previous graph I showed, which is replicated on the left, is annual. That's the same graph I just showed. But you can see that we ended 2024 with an upward swing. You can see that the fourth quarter of 2024 there, the far right bar and revenue in the orange line, actually ticked up from the middle of the year, which was a really difficult period. And so coming into 2025, we're now sitting firmly in the first quarter of 2025. There is a belief that a spirit of optimism among the automation manufacturers, integrators, and distributors. And so I'm going to discuss some of the areas we see this optimism and some of the examples as well. So when we break down these statistics, I like to look at it as automotive versus general industry, or as referred to here, non-automotive. Now, the automotive industry is incredibly important, as we know, to the automation space. They've been deploying thousands of robots over the last several decades. And they are still the largest customer many quarters for robotics technology. But as you can see, automotive is represented here in blue. Non-automotive is represented in red. And non-automotive orders to areas like food and consumer goods, plastics and rubber, life sciences, agriculture, construction, anything that's outside the automotive realm has actually been increasing on average faster than sales to the automotive space, culminating actually in several years over the past 4 years, well, at least 2, where non-automotive orders actually outpaced that of automotive orders. You can see in 2020, 2021, and now 2024 that happened. So why is this? Well, number one, we have to mention that the automotive industry made a miscalculation by all available data. They charged headlong into all electric vehicle fleets, heavy investments in battery production and new models of vehicles, and that did not align with consumer demand. And so when they saw the signs of this and they weren't selling as many vehicles and they received pushback from the market, you saw a lot of battery cancellations. This graph shows you the magnitude of those cancellations. In 2022, almost $8 billion worth of battery investments was canceled. And so that was a signal to the market that said, look, the auto OEMs, they're pivoting their strategy. They realized they weren't over the target in terms of what consumers wanted. And so what I'm hearing and what they're telling us now is that their plans for future model lines include not just EVs, but also hybrid vehicles, combustion engine vehicles, and yes, some all-electric vehicles. So they've pivoted. And they're now in a position, according to the people that I've spoken with who sell into the space, to begin ordering again. And that is also true with the component suppliers. Component suppliers typically lag the auto OEMs in terms of investment because they're kind of waiting to get their signals and their marching orders, if you will, for what the auto OEMs need. Well, that's since been, a lot of it has been determined. And so I anticipate in 2025 we're going to see somewhat of a resurgence in the auto OEM and auto component areas. I want to leave you here on the statistics section with a few other key data points. Number one is annual performance in a few areas outpaced that of the other markets. Food and consumer goods, number one, grew 65% compared to 2023 last year. Life sciences, pharmaceuticals, lab automation, drug production, things like that, grew 46% year over year. We've already discussed the auto OEM and auto component industries, auto OEM was actually up slightly last year, but as you can see, the component markets lagged behind. And still some difficulty selling into the semiconductor and electronics space. I believe that's going to increase once some of these fabs come online and some of the CHIPS Act funding is released and actually deployed into the marketplace. The graph on the right shows you the same annual performance, but just for Q4. So just the 3 months ended December 31st of last year. And you can see those non-automotive industries, the two at the top of the list there, had very good ends of the year in 24. Now, what are these robots doing when they're getting deployed? Well, far and away, they're doing various material handling applications. And I'm sure many of you are familiar with these types of applications like palletizing, pick and place, and things like that. So the robots, the biggest category we have is material handling for robotics globally. But this is North American data. The other applications actually decreased a bit last year. Many of them did, with only the other category, which catches everything that's not called out here in another category, increasing 23%. But we're seeing a lot of uptick in material handling applications. So finally on statistics, I just want to show you that during the COVID-19 period, there was that big bump over the trend line. You can see the area above the trend line there where people were wondering, is this new normal for robotics and automation? Are we at a new threshold? Is the slope of our growth going to take a stepwise change and begin going more steeply? The answer in the near term has been no. We were not at that inflection point. That we're basically corrected over the past 2 years from what we saw pulled ahead and ordered during that COVID-19 21-22 period of time. And so going forward, I believe we are going to return to this trend, this upward trend. I find it very difficult to imagine a scenario where 1, 3, 5, 10 years from now, industrial automation technologies are less important to the way we manufacture, the way we build things, and the way we consume things as human beings. So I believe we are in a very good place from an automation industry perspective. And so, transitioning out of the realm of statistics, I do want to kind of give you some important industry trends as we see them at the association. The first of which is warehousing and logistics, rather. Huge industry, but there's also other areas of opportunity that I'll touch on. Agriculture being one. Outside of the factory, outside traditional manufacturing, there are tremendous opportunities that are not currently automated today, hardly at all. And then, of course, in the construction space, with unstructured environments, with very difficult to access, dusty conditions, things like that, we're seeing robotics really play a more important role in that area as well. So to begin, I'd like to expand on warehousing and logistics. According to Pitney Bowes, in 2021 through the 2023 kind of end of the pandemic period of time, you can see there, our parcel volume as consumers in the United States surged, hit almost 22 billion, and then basically leveled off for a couple of years. But they're anticipating that now, 24, 25, and as we go into 2026, that's actually going to start increasing again on the slope that it was increasing previously. So by 2026, we can expect somewhere near 26 billion parcels annually. And this, think about consumer behavior. Personally, my front porch is like a fulfillment center half the time with how often that, we order things that we're out of on Amazon or, even other services that ship things directly to our home. It's terribly convenient. We're used to it now. And I believe that that's true for many other consumers. And I'm not alone in that regard. And I think consumer behavior is going to continue to drive the investments we see in warehousing and logistics for automation. So I'd like to show you a good example of this. This is Amazon's Sequoia system. And let's watch the video and then I'll make a few comments on it after the fact.
If you want to know how automation, AI, and people are working together, you can see it inside this 3 million square foot building where Amazon employs more than 1,400 people and stores up to 40 million products. Amazon says it logged its biggest Thanksgiving holiday shopping period ever this year, and data shows consumers spent a record $10.8 billion online on Black Friday alone, 10% more than last year, making this kind of efficiency the future.
I'm hearing shriek.
It's possible because here everything is containerized. Instead of humans walking miles a day to get products off the shelves, the items are put into blue and yellow bins that robots can easily maneuver.
We don't want people to lift heavy objects. We don't want people to take boxes and put it over their head or reach down really low. If we can have a robotic system do that for our employees, all the better.
Through Amazon's upskilling program, people who used to do manual labor jobs are now moving into jobs overseeing, repairing, and programming these machines. Amazon says these roles can offer pay that's up to 40% higher than entry-level jobs. Once the items are sorted, they head here to Sequoia, where humans and robots work together.
The goods are coming to the person on demand at just the right time, and we designed the system in order to be ergonomic for our people, right?
Yeah. So he's not bending down, he's not reaching
Exactly.
up.
There's no ladders to reach up. He's not bending down on his knees, right? It's in the Goldilocks zone or the power zone.
That's right.
Brady
This
says
is Proteus. As you can see, it's carrying a bunch of Amazon items ready for delivery, and it has little eyes on its face, and it can sense when we're close to it. It'll chirp and stop when it notices people are in the way. Please, carry on.
it looks like a Roomba on steroids, but these robots work on the floor, and when there aren't enough of them, human workers push and pull those heavy carts. Brady says the future will never be fully automated because people need to design and program the robots and keep them running.
So humans are definitely going to continue to be in the loop. But you can see there an example of how even an Amazon fulfillment center has come a long way in just the last few years. We actually visited one in Orlando, Florida before COVID-19, and a lot of it was still very manually done with individuals, human beings, doing a lot of the picking and the placing and the bending down, as Ty Brady said there. And that has since been essentially automated, and it allows people to do tasks like you see here, the gentleman who's controlling and monitoring the AMRs, more ergonomically designed workstations and things like that. And that's the direction we're heading in warehousing and logistics, to fulfill these increased parcel demands that we as consumers are putting on this industry. But what happens when you have so many warehouses that are already designed, they're already operating, but they're not going to be designed from a ground up perspective like maybe an Amazon can do with Sequoia here, or a brand new facility. Well, enter again humanoid robots. And this is one of the promises that this form factor actually proposes to the marketplace. When you have human designed environments and you can't put an AMR in there potentially because it's too wide or it doesn't fit with the aisles or things like that, it can be very costly and challenging to consider, redoing that facility to accommodate AMRs and other automation. So enter humanoid robots, and you can see our, digital police lineup here of several of the humanoid robot manufacturers on the marketplace today. This is what they hope to, achieve and get across to consumers. It's actually happening right now in the marketplace. A good example of this is at GXO, which is piloting several different humanoid robots right now. I'd like to show you just one example of this, and it's the agility robot that GXO has deployed.
On June 5th, 2024, Digit became the first humanoid robot in history to be deployed into commercial operations. This milestone happened at a GXO facility near Atlanta.
For the first time in history, not just for agility, but ever, the humanoid robot was deployed in a permanent long-term contract to do a task. That's a new era.
GXO has put Digit to work, starting with moving totes. This milestone marks the beginning of an industry-first, multi-year agreement to deploy humanoid robots.
We have robots that are on the way towards being general purpose. They aren't single-purpose robot arms. They aren't mobile robots on the ground where you design your environment around them. They are humanoid robots that can go into spaces that were designed around us, doing workflows that were designed around us, but in roles where it's very, very hard to hire.
So humanoid robots is definitely, as I mentioned earlier, getting a lot of attention, a lot of investment. But it's not just from the United States. China, in fact, is going full force, full steam ahead into humanoid robot research and production. And so at NVIDIA's recent press conference and booth at CES, they showed about 14 different models of humanoids that are available. Actually, 6 of those 14 were from China, only about 4 from the United States. And Shanghai actually just announced that they have the first, what they're calling, humanoid training facility, which is a very interesting space, basically designed to have over 100 humanoid robots doing a variety of different tasks at any one moment, with the chief goal to collect as much data as possible from those humanoid robots, so they can basically build systems that can power intelligence of humanoid robots to overcome obstacles in the field. And they're pouring millions of dollars into this, billions of dollars into this. So it's important for us as companies located in America, for example, to understand that this is essentially a race like the AI race is, that's running in parallel. That there's billions of dollars being poured into investment into humanoid robots, and this is likely to continue for the foreseeable future. But it's not all humanoid robot related, right? I mentioned agriculture before. Agriculture is one of these, no pun intended, these greenfield applications in a lot of cases where there's no automation and they're really struggling to do the tasks that they have on the farms. One example here from NBC Nightly News shows you a weeding robot. That's an autonomous robot. You'll see and hear about the data center capabilities that it has, but it also leverages vision and imaging systems, robotics, motion control, and it's a pretty impressive piece of technology.
Okay, yes, it's a killer robot with an AI brain. But hear me out. It kills weeds. On a 2,000-acre organic farm in Central California, this $1.2 million machine does the work of 30 people 24 hours a day.
The machine is thinking. It's learning. It's understanding what it's seeing.
What AI is great at is telling the difference between things. In this case, the difference between chard and a weed, and then killing the weeds with lasers. CEO Paul Mikesell has invented a system that fries weeds too small for a human hand to grab, in bursts that last only milliseconds. The field smells like burnt popcorn.
The whole trick here is the lasers disrupt the cellular cycle within the plant with heat energy.
It takes a rack of servers to recognize 40 crops and 80 types of weeds.
This machine has got more computing power than 24 Teslas in it. It's essentially a mobile data center.
The farm's owner says the laser weeder will pay for itself in a single year, and that it solves his single biggest problem, which is finding workers.
We're just not getting the influx of new folks that want to come in to this deal. Now, in a job like behind us on this tractor where someone could be making, a really good wage, $30 an hour, he's got a laptop, that's a little easier to find that person.
So this is an example of how they're overcoming these workforce challenges with automation technology. And that's certainly happening in manufacturing as well. It's difficult to find qualified people or folks who are interested in coming into a lot of these jobs in the manufacturing space. So these are themes that are persistent pretty much across industry right now, and automation is a solution for many companies in these areas. Another area that I mentioned earlier that's important to go through here real quick with an example is the construction space. Now, this is an example of a very large robot from Hadrian X who could potentially create new homes or make homes more affordable for people by streamlining the production process and even making it safer for potential workers.
FBR is a West Australian-based robotics technology company that has designed, developed and manufactured the world's most advanced construction robot, the Hadrian X. The global construction industry is in need of long-term, viable and sustainable solutions to current skilled labour shortages, workplace health and safety challenges, waste minimisation, time and cost overruns, and to meet the ever-growing demand for housing. FBR has developed a real and meaningful solution to these problems through the Hadrian X construction robot. A fully mobile, versatile solution providing technology breakthroughs that allow for significant reductions in waste, vast improvements in worksite safety, unparalleled speed and efficiency gains, along with a unique wall-as-a-service delivery model that provides time and cost efficiencies for builders unseen to date. with the capability to build structures up to 4 stories high and of any size, of almost any design, 24 hours a day, 7 days per week, in most weather conditions.
So, obviously, a non-traditional way to create homes or build buildings is using a large robot like the Hadrian X. But in 5 years, in 10 years, does our construction process look more like this than it does if you drive through a new neighborhood today? I think it's likely that we do see that more robots are mapping the job sites, more robots are helping actually lay the bricks, do the work, and human beings are at the helm controlling it or organizing in other ways. So I'd be remiss if I didn't, in this important trends section, talk a bit about artificial intelligence. It's something I'm sure many of you are even using today with the advent of ChatGPT and all the software solutions that are now available to produce video or to analyze documents or do legal work in your companies and things like that. But from a manufacturing perspective, AI holds a lot of promise as well. And this chart will show you just how far AI has come in recent years. It goes back through 2012, and it highlights for you the different lines which represent the different tasks that AI is often deployed for. Image classification is the blue line, basic level reading comprehension, English language understanding, visual reasoning, multitask language understanding, and of course the last one on the list there, the very steep line, is competition level mathematics. The point of this graph is to show you that the human baseline, the dotted line there at 100%, is now being exceeded in many of these different tasks by artificial intelligence. And frankly, if those lines aren't already above the human baseline for the last couple there, they are likely to be soon. And so this poses unique challenges that I'll touch on in a moment. But it does exemplify how important it is to pay attention to artificial intelligence, because we're seeing it not just in 1, 2, 3 very localized areas, but widespread areas in a lot of different ways that business is done. One of these ways for manufacturing purposes is what's called agentic AI. Now, it's basically building AI agents that act as a digital workforce, as NVIDIA's Jensen Huang recently referred to it. You would train the AI agent based on expert knowledge that you have within your company. Then that AI agent has everything that it needs in theory to make educated decisions and operate an entire task or process for you within your business. Even approaching and making key decisions within that process, with human oversight, of course. And so we're seeing agentic AI being a hot area right now. There are other areas that are growing in popularity in the manufacturing and industrial automation space. But I believe in years to come, we're going to see more applications of agentic AI and large language models filter into manufacturing and industrial production processes. But I mentioned the challenges that AI is currently posing. I've just listed some of them here. What happens if AI outpaces industrial robot production, industrial automation production? It's moving a lot faster. So how do we as an industry accurately capture the opportunities and avoid the pitfalls? What does it mean for society, the economy, job markets, as AI exceeds human level performance in more and more tasks as time goes on? What do we do about that? How does society and governments understand what it can do and where it shouldn't be applied, as opposed to where it should be applied? And these are all open-ended questions. I don't have the answers here, and I don't think many of us do as societies, as communities. But it's important that we don't let these challenges dissuade us from the potential. One of the areas that AI has a lot of promise is actually in drug discovery and medical applications. And this next video is an example from CNN about just that topic. And I'll let the video run and then I'll make a comment about it.
Developing new medications has historically been a slow process, requiring years of trial and error research, millions of dollars, and often luck.
Finding drugs is like finding needles in haystacks.
But Dr. Alan Aspudu-Guzik and his team say AI can speed everything up. Last year, using 3 separate applications of AI, Aspudu-Guzik's lab created a new compound that could help treat a type of liver cancer in a fraction of the time it takes for most drug discoveries.
AI is good about finding patterns that the humans don't find as obvious. We use all that data to do less trials, less computational attempts at finding the solution.
Combined with automated robots, they could fine-tune that design faster than humans can, with what they call a self-driving lab.
So this is a robot that allows us to actually carry out liquid dispensing, powder dispensing, etc. Combined with that robot, we can actually make our reactions happen here.
So you're not standing over a little flame holding a beaker.
AI helped us go 200 times faster to find the best molecule. So every time we made a molecule, AI found hints. It's like a sleuth, right? And told us this is the next best molecule to make.
All in, it took the lab just 30 days to find a potential drug compound for liver cancer, in what normally takes a year or two.
So think about this as a productivity tool for scientists. If the scientists can be thinking higher level things, can be organizing experiments that are way more parallel, we can actually accelerate scientific discovery. What we want these scientists to do is to be more productive to solve the problems that are pressing for society nowadays.
So how many folks in the audience would rather have a 1 to 2 year drug discovery cycle for a potential therapy as opposed to 30 days when deploying AI? I know I'm on the 30-day camp. I mean, that the idea that you could accelerate a process, especially in the area of one that could save many people's lives, the idea that AI could help us do that and get to treatments quicker is very, very encouraging, and I think holds a lot of promise in other areas, not just medicine, but medicine is a great example. So I'm nearing the end of my presentation, and I promised the third prong would be to show you forward-looking information, to leave you with what do we expect in 2025 for automation and going forward. This was a recent survey we did last month of our members. We had very good response rate, and we asked them for the first half of 2025, what are you expecting in terms of sales? Well, you can see the optimism reflected in this chart. 48% said up between 1 and 10% year over year. 30% said up 10% or more. And that, you add those two together, that's almost 80% of respondents believe they're going to experience growth in the first half. But look what happens when you go to the full year question. It becomes even more optimistic. You see 46% saying between 1 and 10%, and 43% saying over 10%. So what this tells us is that the second half of 25 is expected to be a stronger half of 2025 for robots and automation sales than the first half, though many are optimistic the entire calendar year. So where are the opportunities? Where is the most significant area of opportunities? They were asked. Manufacturing, many of you would fall in this category, is number one, the top answer. So there are many opportunities there. Automotive still made the list at number 2. Electronics and semiconductor followed at 3, and then aerospace and food and consumer goods rounded out the top 5. Now, we talked a lot about agriculture and warehousing and logistics. They weren't far behind either, and they actually followed there just outside the top 5. But it's not all, sun and roses. Where are the biggest challenges according to this to our member companies? Well, economic challenges is still number 1 at 42%, though 22%, 1 in 5 basically, said the lack of a skilled workforce is still the biggest issue for automation adoption today. We also asked our membership, what new emerging technologies are you yourselves at your company deploying for, innovative purposes to evolve your technologies? You can see that vision technology, cameras, image processing, things like that, AI in vision is number 1, 41%. AI makes another appearance at number 2 with programming, AI programming, 31%. Almost a third of our members are looking at that. You follow that with 20% for edge computing, and then 20%, 1 in 5, said that they're not really looking to deploy any new technologies right now. And so this is all to say the automation market, our membership as a proxy, is extremely optimistic going into 2025. They believe the second half will be stronger than the first half, and areas like manufacturing and automotive are going to lead the charge in terms of a resurgence in investment. A lot of them are looking at new technologies, but not all of them. About 80% of them are. 1 in 5 are not. And so I'd like to close this presentation, wrap things up, to just leave you with what we tell folks when we talk about the benefits of automating. Automation really does help everyone thrive. It helps us produce things more efficiently. It helps us reduce dull, dirty, and dangerous work for human employees. It increases the amount of output and keeps companies competitive globally so that they don't have to lay people off or go out of business. And it also enables workers to do cool stuff it brings people into the fold. It brings young folks into the industry because they get to use 21st century tools. And how cool is that? I have young kids. They love watching videos of robotics and some of the stuff that I've showed. They love watching me put stuff like this together because it's interesting, it's dynamic. So in the next 10 years, what do we expect? Well, at A3, we expect that the market for automation is going to increase, that more companies, many like yourselves, especially the small and medium-sized businesses in our community, are going to begin deploying automation and realizing these benefits that I've listed. Labor shortages, being able to find the right people. I'm sure many of you are wrestling with that right now. Automation can help you address that. Attracting new folks, as I mentioned earlier, to your organization when you have a high technology environment for them to work in, rewarding careers. And also our demographics as a nation are shifting. In America, the baby boomers, they're starting to retire from their positions, in many cases leaving voids or areas where institutional knowledge needs to be passed on. And bridging that gap, automation can potentially help. So there's one final video I would like to show you, and that is from Gray Matter Robotics that I believe ties all these different themes together in a nice way to end the talk here.
U.S. manufacturing faces a massive challenge, a labor shortage so big that 4.6 million jobs need to be filled in the next decade, according to the ARM Institute. Manufacturers everywhere are feeling the crunch, struggling to meet rising demands with fewer skilled workers available. But new technology is stepping up to fill the skilled labor gap, robotics combined with AI. One company at the forefront of this technology is Gray Matter Robotics from California. Their AI robotics for fabrication and surface finishing don't just repeat the same programmed tasks over and over. They think. They adapt to high-mix manufacturing environments, where parts change often and variability is the name of the game.
Consistency is what we look for. With a human being doing the sanding functions, you can create quite a few different defects.
And the best part? They don't replace workers. They help them do more, with less wear and tear on their bodies. AI automation, like what Gray Matter Robotics provides, handles heavy, repetitive, and ergonomically risky tasks, like sanding, polishing, grinding, and coating, allowing manufacturers and their workers to focus on upskilling, managing their robots, and making critical decisions best left for humans.
What used to take us an hour to get 2 parts out with one person, now we can use one person to get 8 parts out.
Combining AI with robotics has given high-mix manufacturers automation options that not only increase throughput, but also raise employee satisfaction and retention.
So, if you are interested in the value proposition that you saw there in the Gray Matter video, or just exploring and seeing what is available to you in today's marketplace, there's honestly no better opportunity to do so than in Detroit at Automate this year. A3 is the organizer of the Automate show, so if you have any questions about it, I can get you direct answers quickly. I'll leave you with my contact information at the end of this presentation. But we hope you'll decide to come. It is free to attend, so if you can make the trip to Detroit, you're going to see the robots, see the AI, see the machine vision, all the things that you saw in this video, even humanoids, at the show. And if you're interested in joining A3 or getting involved or just going to our website and learning more, we have articles and webinars and things that you can learn about all this technology, even as a non-member. Please do so by visiting automate.org. It would be great to involve many of you in the audience in our membership in the near future. And that brings me to my contact information. Again, I want to thank the TMA folks and Sarah Ann. Apologize for not being able to be there with you in person. Jeff, I know, feels similarly. He wishes he could be there with you. But I encourage you all to add me on LinkedIn. The link is here. Call me, text me, or just look me up. I'm happy to connect with you. Go through any questions you might have about this presentation or share the slides. I'd be happy to share the slides with you. And I just want to thank you, TMA team, again, and all of you for your attention, and wish you a great rest of your event. Thank you.